I can be into a bunch of different genres and styles, and like I can mix things up in ways that like my father, like he never, because he might not have ever encountered this. Like I used to like keep myself up at night, totally distraught over the idea that like people used to go their whole lives with not realizing that their favorite ever song they would never hear.
There he is.
Hey,
Bouchard.
There we go. Unmute.
Nice. I like your setup. We all have cool setups.
Yeah, an SM57. Real. I'm real high end over here. You know, you actually have the 7B. I noticed, and I actually usually have that. I usually use that, but it's in the shop at the moment.
It's in the shop. These things break down.
No, well, they break down when they fall off your stand and hit the floor real hard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is what happened because I have a cat that decided that was
cats. You know, they're always knocking microphones off the counter. That's what I find.
They're vicious. They're
vicious animals is what they are.
That's what I would say.
Cats are cool. I like cats.
Yeah. I do
so cool, man. Yeah, like this is like the microphone to have. If you're
totally
cool. You know, you got to be cool to have one of these.
Yeah, I'm borrowing somebody's. I actually ordered a Rode. Somebody had to come in.
It looks good, though. That's a good one.
NT2A. It's a badass microphone.
I ordered a Rode on Sweetwater, and the guy called me, and he was like, they're on back order for 2 weeks. And I was like, why? I was like, so mad. And he was like, you're not the only one podcasting right now, buddy.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, let's just say, like, a lot of white guys decided that they were bored, you know,
exactly.
the pandemic.
Do a podcast.
Yeah, you know what? I have thoughts and opinions. I'm going to put them out there. There's definitely going to be a market for it.
There's not that much competition with this.
No, not
you know.
It's like, and just because I don't have a background in comedy or anything, that doesn't mean that like people want to hear my jokes.
I mean, we've been doing this for about a little over a month, and we already have about 500,000 subscribers. So.
You know what? That's you guys.
Wait a minute.
Dream.
He was wrong. It's 56. Damn it.
Oh, man, okay.
I thought it was
close. A couple numbers off. No big deal.
It was, you just saw zeros. That's you saw zeros.
Right.
It's insanely hard to get subscribers. Like we don't even know how to do it. At least on Facebook, you can pay for likes. On YouTube, it's like you're just on your own. You just got to have a good product, or you're screwed.
Well, there's like, what is this Anchor now? That like where they say that you can like instantly monetize, that like you basically like, oh yeah, you sign up, it doesn't even matter how there's no minimum subscriber to get money for it. I'm like, that don't
what? No, but they pay you like 1/100 of a cent.
Yeah. It's Spotify numbers basically.
Ugh, it's terrible. But yeah, Spotify's funny. They're like, yeah, we made this platform for local artists to be discovered in a giant ocean of people that are way more popular than you. So there's no way to be discovered. It's funny because like I used to do like when Napster first came out way back in the day. That's how I first discovered like new artists. So you could actually discover new things, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember. Although the funny thing about Napster, this is a phenomenon that like our children and our children's children will not have any idea about. Where like you'd search on Napster, like say you want to listen to like the Misfits, and then like you'd be like, oh, I've never seen this song before. It's the Misfits. It's cool. I'll download that, and then you listen to it. You're like, this doesn't sound like them, and it's like some other artist that was mislabeled.
Yeah,
and I'm always thinking like, is that like a local band like doing a real strategic move where they're like, oh yeah, like I want this to get streamed, but then they think it's the Misfits, and you have no other indication of.
That's hilarious. I think
the reason I keep saying Misfits because that happened to me with the Misfits.
Yeah, I had true story. I think it was WinMX or something like that. Remember that WinMX? Yep. And I downloaded a song. Remember that '90s song? It was like, look around your world,
pretty baby wizard.
So apparently it's called Roll to Me by Del Amitri.
Yes.
And on WinMX it said it was called Pretty Baby by the Spin Doctors. And so for years I was like, I gotta find that Spin Doctor song. And
they were in the right territory. I feel like.
Right territory,
yeah. Like if you squint, it's like the Spin Doctor.
Or it was like I remember it would type in like something and it would be like, yeah, Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel, but it was by the Beatles instead on WinMX. Like 80 of them. I'm like, who got this wrong that many times?
Yeah, and then also just all this weird stuff where like there would be like like a skip in the song, or like something would repeat, like, and that, but it'd be on your iPod, and that would just be kind of how you internalize the song. And there's this I think it's a Beatles song that like I had on my iPod for a real long time. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but it's like, I think it's From Me to You. And like, there's the version I had of it had a like, from me to you. And like, just like, it was just an error. But then I listened, but that was the version I had and listened to. And so like now every time I hear that song, it just doesn't sound right unless there's the little skip there.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that happened with the Beach Boys song too. Something was cut off and I just got used to that.
The rampant mislabelings of early Napster days. Those are the days.
Really, the halcyon days.
You know?
So are you currently working, or did COVID screw that up, or what's going on?
Yeah, I'm lucky. Like, so I am still working. I have a day job working for a marketing company, and I lead the sort of project management team. It hit our company pretty hard. A lot of our clients, had to not exist because they have no money. And so, we had to lay people off, but I've been there for, a few years now, and kind of, I don't know if it's grandfathered in is the right term, but like, I'm kind of like higher up in sort of the food chain in terms of having that. So I've been, pretty lucky. And also the industry itself is really well suited to working from home. This is my office basically. And, so, largely, yeah, I've been able to work the whole time. And, in addition, then, in between meetings and stuff like that, I'll take out my guitar and, play a few songs, or like learn a cover. And it's been great. I really like it because I was living in Massachusetts up until basically last year or so. And that's where I work still. So I was commuting from Providence to Boston.
So in Providence right now?
I live in Providence right now.
Whoa.
Yeah. I love it here. It's this, Providence is like, and this sort of, it was before, the whole COVID thing. Providence had the coolest scene. It's like, people, I grew up in Massachusetts. I was playing music in the Boston scene for a million and a half years. And like, I do feel like it's always a little tricky to kind of put yourself out there musically in Boston. Like there's plenty of places to play. There's plenty of shows you can play and be booked on, but there's like a little bit of an enthusiasm problem. I find, I don't know, like it's,
on the musician or the guest or the
I'm like I don't want to say the fan, because like it's sort of
that drunk guy over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like I think that what it is like the audience. So basically, in some ways, like and it took me a long time to kind of feel like I understood this, but like I think that there's like in some ways people in Boston are a little spoiled because there's so much music. You can go to a show every night and there's something cool, and because of that, it's like the Netflix problem. It's like, why go out there and experience this thing, get real pumped up about it because there's so much of it when you could just stay home and watch Netflix. I know that's a little we kind of snapped into it a little early with that, but I do find, and so what I mean to say is that like Providence doesn't really have that. It feels like it's like kind of an older school scene in some ways. It reminds me of like New York in like the 80s and stuff like that, where like they still have shows that go super late. Like people will be out until like 3 a.m. at a show watching music. They still have like it's actually like if you put up flyers around here, it works to get people to your show. Or
that's crazy, because it's like we've done that before. Yeah. With our guitarist John, him and I went in Salem to promote a show, and we basically just went to a bar and got semi-drunk and grabbed a stack of flyers and literally ran on foot around Salem and just like handed them to people in cars. We're total guerrilla warfare style. Stapling them to stuff like that. But I don't know if it worked or not, but that's cool. We tried at least. But we had a guest on, I think it was the last episode. He was saying the same thing about the South Shore. There's something different about the South Shore that's like more.
I think once you leave these like big like metro areas, because the funny thing is like that's the scene you want to crack. That's the one you're like, oh, I'm going to be in the city. That's kind of like which where most people are. It's where, there's some industry,
Right.
whatever's left of it. And so you think like, oh, okay, like I want to crack those metro scenes. I want to go to Boston. I want to go to New York and stuff like that. But the reality is like, I think actually like in some ways, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Like in some ways, like, scarcity creates a demand in a way. So if you're in a smaller city, if you're where, just there's fewer, and there's a lot of music here, so like make no mistake, but like if you're a smaller scene where like there's not a million bands and there's only a couple venues which are really cool, like people get like kind of more jazzed about it. So that's kind of, so I found that, and I moved here about a year ago, and obviously pre-COVID and everything like that, like I would find like from basically Thursday to Monday or so, like there would be at least 2 or 3 cool shows at a venue every night. And like, like there's a couple specific venues that fucking rule. Like, the News Cafe is like this cool little like grimy bar. There's a Skew, which is kind of newish and like, has like a cool scene. Like, and it's like, I don't know if you guys have like experienced this with like particular venues, but like, you look at like, I can think of like O'Brien's, which is like a cool spot. Like you have a cool, like I've been to some sick packed shows there, but like there's
Alston,
no,
right?
Yeah, Alston, yeah.
Okay.
And like up the street from Great Scott, RIP, hopefully you're coming back. I know there's a lot of investment thing. People are really excited, but I love Great Scott too. So that place rules. But like those places, even though they have like a reputation to have cool bands and cool music, like there's no guarantee anyone's going to come out to a show, unless you hustle your ass off.
Dude, it is brutal to get people like some of these shows, even especially in the middle of the week, unless you're a heavy hitter, you guaranteed draw, and you got to be huge. Even like some of the well-known artists have trouble sometimes.
Oh yeah, we like my band Salem Wolves. Like we would support like nationals, like big nationals. Like I remember this one band that I will not name for obvious reasons in a moment. Like they had like all of their songs on Spotify had like over 1 million streams, like all like big, and they were like a young, like totally hip. Like these are like you can tell that like they have like a push behind them, and they were playing at Great Scott, and we opened for them, and we played to like, I want to say 20 people, and that place holds a lot more than that. So like that was, right. It was okay. Like 20 people when they were up there for us was cool. But by the time they went on and they were the headliner, like half those folks had left. So like this band's playing to 10 people. They're on an international tour. Like they're going to, and it's just like, that's kind of how it works. Like you don't like, you can have 1 million streams on Spotify, but for some reason it doesn't translate to people at Great Scott.
When push comes to shove, man, you got to put asses in the seats. We've played with a touring band from England once in Saugus. It was another O'Brien's. I don't know if you've been there. It's a smaller place, obviously.
Yeah, it's considered Lynn.
I was going to say, because I used to live in Saugus. That's funny.
Yeah, we grew up in Saugus.
Yeah, we're all from Saugus. It's a bunch of Saugus kids.
A bunch of Saugus kids.
Yeah, a bunch of Saugus kids.
We'll head to like Kelly's roast beef. It's going to be awesome, kid.
No, that's
Kowloon.
That's the tourist shop. You want Mike's roast beef. Mike's roast beef is where it's at.
What was one near me? I think it was Bob's or Billy's. That's it. Billy's. That's it. On Main Street, or right between like Wakefield and Melrose.
Oh,
Billy's.
Yeah, I've driven by that place.
Billy's, yeah.
Never
good
actually
roast
been
beef,
inside.
Real solid, actually solid lobster roll. Surprisingly, we wouldn't think about it.
Dude, these days lobster rolls like probably $30.
Yeah. It's
fucking lobster roll.
It's tough, man.
For a sea scorpion, you want $30 for a sea scorpion? Come on, sea rats with mayonnaise. They charging me $30. I gotta get into the lobster business. That's what I gotta.
Oh yeah, it's a racket.
But I was gonna say with putting people asses in the seats, you can have millions of streams, and that's all cool, But when it comes to live gigs, it's a different game.
It's a different animal, and what I found down here, which is cool, which is cool, is that like in some ways there's like the venues actually like the venues have a pull. Like people know this venue has cool music, and they are still like jazzed about it. Or at least that's what it was before. And I think that once we emerge from this, whatever venues are left, that's going to be a
Right.
thing. But it is definitely it's interesting because like I hate to be this guy because I always sound like a little like snubbed, which I never felt that way when I was up in Massachusetts at all. But like, in fact, I had opportunities that I'm still so thankful for. And like, I'm still like, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe like I opened for that band or I can't believe I played that show and it was cool, sold out. And like, but like in some ways there's a little bit of like a jaded problem up in Boston specifically, but once you get out of the city, it all changes. Like people have a different approach to music, and I like that.
Yeah, even Cambridge is still a hip town. I feel like
totally.
As far as music goes, it's always a cool place to go. Boston itself, I don't even know what's there anymore. It's sad.
And well, it's all these like, especially because as the real estate starts to go up, like you start to get like, I mean. There's obviously issues with like Great Scott, they're trying to push them out. And, there's like, and even that, like that's Alston, like in Boston proper, you got like McGann's basically. I think that's it.
It's like a venue apocalypse. It's like all these cool, it's like the places for local bands to play is just shrinking. And if you look at the past couple decades, you can see a graph just go like way down. And it's just a trend, not only in like, not just venues, but just how hard it is to make it as a local musician. Because, back in, 80s, 90s, you could ask Derek's dad, when he was growing up, he would make a living just playing bass in hotels. You can make a killer living.
Totally.
You got the right gig. Good luck trying to get that gig now in 2020. Come on. When can you, who is supporting themselves playing 5 shows a week?
Well, that was the time too, when like they would like hire house bands. Like my dad played 6 nights a week at the same place.
And you hear about like all these like these like cool fans like doing exactly that, where they would be like, oh, they had like a residency and they would play like every week for like 3 months, and like that's how they got super tight. And I'm like, and I think that sounds sweet, but at the same time, there's another part of me that's like, would anyone after that first night come? Like, and I'm not saying that because like the second show would suck. I'm just saying that because like I just feel like people get over it in this weird way, and I don't like that because it's like that's not how I feel about it.
You're saying nowadays people are like that?
Yeah, like nowadays people just don't. I can't quite put my finger on it. Like I think
bands maybe.
I think maybe, I think are the way, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, because actually, so this is, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. So my uncles were in the Blue Oyster Cult. 2 of them were founding members of the Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Joe and Albert. So they were the rhythm section of the band.
Nice.
And yes, Albert did play.
I was gonna mention, I didn't want to be an asshole.
He literally has a podcast on YouTube that is like called, I think, like the most cowbell, because
oh shit,
like that's his thing. And like I've played with, and they still like play music. They're in their 70s and they're total like lifers. It's awesome.
Oh wow.
And they're like incredibly talented. It's amazing. So they like came into town just to like hang with me and like sort of in a family reunion sort of thing. And what we do in our families, everyone plays music. So, we booked a show, I think at the Plow and Stars in Cambridge, which is cool.
We played there.
Yeah. That's a cool spot.
Cool spot, yeah.
And they just like posted it like kind of last minute on their Facebook, and a bunch of these like hardcore, they're in their 60s, fans of the Blue Oyster Cult like came out, and they're just sitting there like wrapped in attention. They're like, and it's like it's amazing. And I was thinking that really left an impression on me, because I feel like that doesn't happen anymore. And I'm thinking like these people discovered this music and like and I think it's how they discover the music and the role it plays in their lives. So like as a fan, so like they're hearing this music for the first time, 1972, they're probably 17. They're like they just have the radio or like the limited number of albums they have at home. So they, this thing comes on the radio. They're like, I've never heard anything that sounds like this. This rules. And it like creates different connections in their brain. So to the point where, 50 years later, like they will say that like these guys are their favorite band. They will go to any means and like it's wild to me. Again, it's rare that I see that level of enthusiasm kind of nowadays. And I hate to be the guy that's like, things these days aren't as good as they used to be, you know, because that sucks. You know, there's a lot of other elements that have really improved, you know, like there's the access to music, you know, the different voices that we have, you know, that's great. But it's like, I think that in sort of democratizing the music industry and sort of in commodifying in the way that we did, where it's like we went from albums which were relatively expensive and hard to get, and you only could have a certain number of them unless you were a total lunatic and filled your whole house, to now which I mean, I'm sure a lot of us
I'm getting
anyway.
there. I'm getting there. It's growing every day.
And we went from that to like, you know, you have a Spotify playlist that can have 1 million songs on it, and you listen to one, okay, I'm over that, but next song. And so I think it just changed the way that we interact with music, and like it doesn't, I hate to say it doesn't mean as much, but it means it kind of hits us differently. We're looking
it's everything, all the content, it's way more easily accessible, but at the same time it's that much more easier to dismiss it. At the same time, you scrolling by an album, you can you listen to the first song, just scroll by. Where back in the day, if we're talking about records, back in the day, you go to the store, you have to buy, and like, well, the first song kind of sucks, but I just bought this thing, I'll give it a chance.
That's exactly, and think about it too. Like, you went to the record store, maybe half the time you're just buying that because it has like a cool cover. You're like, I don't know anything about this. The cover looks dope.
Absolutely.
And you have only a certain amount of money in your pocket. You got like $20, and you're like, I'm gonna spend my $20 on whatever this is. You take it home, you listen to it, and if it was nowadays, and like you said, like the first song, you're like, I don't really like this. If it was nowadays, you skip it because you didn't spend any money. Back then, you invest in this. This was like maybe 10% of your collection of all the music you had access to.
Right.
Like notwithstanding like the radio, which you couldn't control. And I think that what it means is that this stuff means more. It like, because the money was tighter, the technology was different in such a way that like you couldn't just have access to the universe of music.
And that's what we have today. You literally have a universe in your pocket, you know, and that's it always is a double-edged sword with technology. It's like freaking amazing. I can get access to, I can look at their catalog on Spotify or whatever and get the whole thing. But there is that other side where it is so easy to get. It's also so easy to dismiss. And I think with these types of, you know, advancements in technology, you really have to have the discipline to appreciate it. But the problem is most people don't, and it's just like, and I think you get things like, we're talking about music scenes and like people, the jaded atmosphere you described, maybe in the Boston area, and it's different around the country, different pockets here and there. And I think technology has a huge part to do with that, because, you know, back then, like you were just saying, you had a certain $20 in your pocket. Maybe you bought an album just because it looked cool here and there, but when you went home, well, you kind of stuck with it, and you have to kind of give it a chance.
You had to give it
Ted Cole's.
Ted Cole's. I don't think
so. Ted Cole's was a little music shop in Salem that closed down 7 or 8 years ago. My mother and I used to go when I was a kid, and it was the coolest place because you could go in and the guy would like print out music sheets for you from any song you could go. And that was like a big deal for me because like we'd only go to Salem once in a great while. And when we did, I was like, oh, I remember specifically, I heard a song by Supertramp on the radio. It was called Goodbye Stranger. And I wanted the music for it so bad. And we went and I got it. I went home and I learned it on the piano and everything. And now I can get it online so easily. And there's something, like you said,
ruins the experience. Like there's that social component that technology just obliterates. And I recall, you know, it was just, I don't know. What are you going to say?
Oh yeah, well, what it is like it affects us evolutionarily. Like if you think about it, like scenes, you know, like social scenes are almost like a species or a thing where like evolutionarily, like things are introduced into the gene pool, like quote unquote. I'm not actually speaking about actual genes, but like you know, like the technology comes in and it changes the way we interact with it. And kind of something that you said before, where it's like, we don't quite know how to deal with it. It's like, I think that's what that's what we're experiencing right now, kind of as people who are active in music and trying to figure out like, okay, like I love the benefits of this. I love that I can have a diverse collection of music that I can listen to at any time, and I can be into a bunch of different genres and styles, and like I can mix things up in ways that like my father, like he never, because he might not have ever encountered this. Like I used to like keep myself up at night, totally distraught over the idea that like people used to go their whole lives with not realizing that their favorite ever song they would never hear. Like they because it just by virtue of distribution, like maybe it was released in San Francisco and they lived in Tokyo, you know, like, and in 1963, they're not going to meet. Right. So that's like existentially very sad. And we don't have that anymore. Things can spread in a viral way, which is no one's favorite term right now, for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like things can spread differently, and that's great. But it changed what music meant. It changed the value of music, because now, because if you spend every dime in your pocket on this one thing and you're not going to be able to hear anything else for the next week, it's as soon as you walk out that door, as soon as you lay down the bill, it means more to you than anything I put on Spotify.
Absolutely. And even I'm a big Joe Rogan fan, and Billy Corgan was on there recently, and he was saying the same exact thing. He was like, I think that when you purchase an album by an artist, your relationship with that artist changes. Like you just become more loyal. And like you said, like I throw my headphones on and I put on Spotify these songs. If I didn't have Spotify and I could just go out to like a music store and get a record, like I would be listening to that nonstop, and it would just mean so much to me. It still means a lot to me, because I think the three of us are in that old breed of we still care so much.
Well, all of us love music. Like there's a part of what we're talking about too is also the relationship between, like, as musicians, your relationship with music is different than I would say a non-musician or a person who's like a fan. You know, like I was thinking and sort of like talking about like, you know, that relationship that you have with a musician or an artist. Like my favorite artists, the artists that like probably, you know, made the most impact on me, and they're the ones I sort of carry a fondness to. You know, they're not my favorite artists now necessarily, but like they were the ones that I really loved, are all the artists that I used to listen to driving around in high school, because I had the binder of CDs, and there were like 20 CDs in there. Maybe, you know, maybe if I had two sides, it'd be 48 or something like that. And that was it. You know, I had those CDs in my car.
I was in high school, and I remember carrying a CD book in a Walkman with me.
Oh yeah.
Just for study class. I knew like in study I had I had a CD book, just like on a leather CD book with like, you know, 4 at a time per page. It was huge.
That was a smart idea, actually, because I used to go to school with a Discman and just have that CD all day long, just that one CD. So like if it was like Boston's first album, I'm like, I guess I'm listening to these 7 songs.
And it
all
carves
day long.
grooves in you. It carves grooves in your head because you're just listening to this one thing, and like, and even talking about it, like the force, like you think about, oh man, that's a lot of music. Like always back then, that felt like so much music. You had the whole books. I had those too, and. Like there was always like an arms race as to like who had the larger CD book, and then when you head into your friend's car, be like, oh, like what's he have, and then like stuff like that. But then I'm thinking now, I'm like, man, that was less than 200 songs. Like they're like I probably listened to 400 songs in a week, maybe. That's not true, but you know, like it's just so weird to kind of compare, you know, how you interacted with music then to like what music is now. And I do think we're going through like a growing pains kind of thing, where we have the technology, but we Frankenstein it, and no one asked if you know, what's the phrase? Like we were so busy worrying about if we could, we never asked if we should.
Right.
Right. It's kind of like artificial intelligence. You know, it sounds cool. You know, it's like you can prove all these things, but once it's implemented, what are the side effects going to be? You know, it's like I don't know. It's crazy with, you know, what is the end result of all this? And I think what you said was true. It's like we're going through growing pains. How do we process this? How do we deal? What's the right? because a lot of things I think are suffering in the process, like the musical scene. I think in general, comparing it to evolutionarily, like a species, like you just did, some of these species are being extinct, because of technology. So it is a little bit of a transition phase where we go from here. Not to quote Neo from The Matrix, but where we go from here, I leave to you.
Whoa.
Hey, Salem Wolves.
Yes.
So I listened to all the music today of Salem Wolves
on
you. Spotify.
I will be expecting that like fraction of a penny.
I'll send you a 10-paragraph essay later on tonight.
Thank you.
No, but seriously, Tooth and Nail.
You'll be quizzed.
2017.
Yeah.
Great album, man.
Thank you.
I picked out 3 of my favorites off this one. It was tough because I do like a lot of songs off here, but I'm wondering, because I love doing this, because I always wonder if like the artist is going to be surprised by this, or if it's going to be like, oh, everybody likes that song.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually pumped about this. I'm very curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So my 3 were From the Vault.
Okay, cool.
Might have been my number 1. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I love the vocals in that.
That was like we always thought of that one as like the single, kind of.
Okay.
And it's weird. So Tooth and Nail has like a weird backstory. It was not really a backstory, but like Tooth and Nail was kind of like, it's sort of a compilation. Like some of the songs had been previously released, and we had like put out a couple singles, and then some of them like we just kind of like were cobbling it together, and we actually had a couple like lineup changes. And Tooth and Nail, I'm not Tooth and Nail. From the Vault was the first and actually the only song that our current drummer Eliyahu is on. We had gone through a couple different drummers before that, and like, it was awesome, but like, just, people had other things in their lives. They kind of weren't like, they wanted to move on to other stuff, and so that one always is like, I like that one a lot. It's funny because we always like we were doing it live for a while, but like it never really came together live the way that it did on the record. And so we kind of like shit canned it live at least. But that was always a favorite of mine. We did a little music video for it, which I really liked. And it always had that like it had that swing, like kind of like I was always picturing hey
yeah.
But I liked, okay, that's awesome, man. I that's cool that's the one you
From the Vault, definitely. I also really like Peach.
That's another great one. That one we recorded with Dave Minahan from the Neighborhoods, and also has a studio out in Waltham. I think Woolly Mammoth is what's called. He's
like, I've heard of that. Actually, somebody recommended that to me recently. Woolly Mammoths.
Great studio. Like all like analog stuff. Like he's got 1 million amps, 1 million guitars. Like he's like I don't say this lightly, but he's like a musical genius. He hears. I was playing. This is embarrassing for me more than anything, but like I was playing this guitar and like I thought it was in tune. I thought I was doing good. And he like it was during a take, and he's like, "Can you play that?" Like just like a chord for a thing there, and I'm like bring, and I think it sounds fine. He comes in there and he like looks at my guitar and he's like, I think you have 2 D strings on here. Like they were tuned perfectly, but just from like a weird intonation thing, he could hear that like I had put on the wrong string, which is like I said,
a slight spasm,
Yeah. It's like something about that. But yeah, so Peach is another cool one. That one we actually did in a combination of his studio in Woolly Mammoth and Waltham, where we did like a lot of overdubs and kind of mixed the whole thing. And we also that started at the Converse studio that they used to have on the waterfront. They were doing like a thing where they would invite like local bands to record for like a day, and we were really lucky and got to do that. And I think it came out really cool. But yes, that was
cool. Do they master over there too?
I believe he does. Yeah, I think he does. He can do anything. He's an awesome engineer, awesome producer. He actually plays in the Replacements sometimes. Like, I think he's like the guitar player who like replaced the Stinson and the Slim Dunlap, I think was their other guitar player. Yeah. So he's amazing, and so I can't recommend.
Yeah, like I said, they've been brought up to me a couple of times. That place. We record ourselves now, but. Yeah. I think the thing we're doing now is we mix it ourselves, and then we're probably gonna send it out to be mastered.
So mastering is such a weird thing. Like I still don't quite understand how you do it and what it does, except for
I don't either.
yeah, except for every time I get something mastered, I'm like, you're right. It sounds fucking better. It sounds amazing. Like I like it. It is one of the most indescribable, mysterious things, but also it's so indispensable. So it's like, yeah, I would say like if you're gonna spend money on anything, spend money on mastering, and it'll do so much for you, especially if you're doing STEM mastering. I've been working with a guy recently on some newer stuff that like he's really into stem mastering, where he takes all the individual stems and like it's sort of a hybrid of mix and master, because he will adjust the levels kind of as he needs to, but everything is kind of there in its format. Like he's not like changing effects or anything like that. It's just there.
You think mastering is more dealing with frequencies than volume?
Yeah,
I don't like you just said. I'm just guessing. It's like magic or something. It's like they have. I don't know what they're manipulating in there, but it sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, my impression is that it is like it's about like looking at the frequency spectrum and like trying to get things in the frequencies out of each other's way. Because you think about like
Right.
like if most like vocals like live in like the high mids, and like most and that's also where like a snare hit is, and like for most like rock and roll music you want to hear that snare, but you don't want it to cover the vocals. This is me like trying to reproduce what I've been told mastering is, and I hope I'm doing an okay job. Well, anyway, I don't master
sounds
stuff.
really cool when they do it right. It's and like you were saying, that's like to put your money in anything. I think mastering.
That's the one.
Because people can mix. That's more like basic. It still involves some skill, but I think
it does. Mixing also is you can kind of I don't want to say obscure or hide, but you can really kind of embrace like your auterness in a mix. You can be like, you can be like, this is the mix I wanted. I wanted the vocals to be super low, or I wanted like,
right.
Like this particular effect. Like, that's all stuff you can do in the mix, and that can be fine because like you listen, there's plenty of artists that have vocals that are like totally in the bottom of the mix and hardly audible, and like, or have like drums that are super loud or something like that. But then like once you put it out into like streaming and like CDs and stuff like that, when you start to like you put it up against like things that in even your catalog in your collection that you like, you're like this something's off.
That's always what I'm scared of, is when I hear like our own stuff, like our early stuff of ours, and I have it on a Spotify playlist, and like I have that on, and then I have like a song by whoever, professional, like popular band, and I'm like, ooh, it sounds like where we recorded that in a garage now compared to them.
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, but the last song of the three that I really, really enjoyed was I Saw Hell.
Oh, that was the first ever song that we wrote as
awesome.
as band. Yeah, that was on it's funny because so like what the band I started Salem Wolves with my friend Harrison, who is the bassist, and like we didn't know each other at the time, and my whole concept like for the band started when I think it was the winter of 2014. It was like January, or I don't know if it was 2014 2000. I think it was 2014, and like super brutal. It was like everything was so cold. We got like a bunch of snow, and I was living out in the woods in Saugus in this like little cabin, and I took my I was out just like trying to take like the trash cans from the side of my house to the front of my house one night, and I took a fucking header on some ice and just bashed my shoulder real bad, and like my shoulder still hurts from it, and like bashed my head on the like frozen snow. It was like the snow, it had snowed, and then the wind and the like melted a little bit to turn it basically to a sheet of ice. So like in that moment I was like, I had this moment because I hit myself so fucking hard. I was like, I could have died in the snow and no one was going to find me for a fucking week. And so that was, so like, and like, I was lucky cause like it hurt, but like I was conscious, and like I got back in the house, and I was like nursing my wounds. And like in that moment, I just thought to myself, like, I was like, I had this sort of idea for, you know, a band or for sort of a concept behind a song where, and I knew I wanted sort of like a like rock and roll kind of thing. But like in that moment, I was like, oh man, like, what if you have like a near death experience and you see the bad place and you have this moment of like, you're not seeing the light, you're seeing the other stuff. And you know, I feel like that's like a theme in some like literature and songs and stuff like that. But I think that like a lot of the times it's sort of the character's like, oh, I'll change my ways. I'll be a better person. But then it's like, I like the idea, because I was in not a great mood or place at the time, where I was like, what if that happened and like, I didn't use that as like, oh, like a time to like wake up and stuff. Instead, I just like, yeah, I'm a shitty person. I'm gonna go to hell. You know, that's, you know, I don't care about anything. So like that sort of really shaped the character of like, I had that theme, and I saw hell as basically about that. It's like told from the perspective of someone who, like, it literally starts with I slipped and fell on the ice, which happened to me. And because of that, like, I don't know. I just, the band was really conceptually driven in the early days. We kind of moved away from that because like you start to get into like the Misfits territory where you have to bring out like a skull on stage, you know, and it's like spooky. You know, yeah. So that's cool, and that was like that was the first song that we wrote together as a band. We recorded it on an EP early on, which has its own kind of charms, but it was pretty raw, and then we re-recorded it for Tooth and Nail, just to be like just brutal heavy.
Nice, dude. That's such a cool approach, though. Like you always hear about people talking about towards the light, but it's cool when artists go to the other direction. Like,
well, that's kind of,
you know, that's what art is. It's like you're going towards to the other place, you know.
Yeah, and I just don't like I don't think that there's a lot of creative juice and piousness. Like, I just don't like I think that there's not a lot of like I think that's if you're writing a story, if you're writing a song, whatever. I've always really liked to write songs as stories. Like, I think that there's a little bit of a weird misconception about music that like, if you're a guy on stage with a guitar, you're singing about yourself all the time. And there's a degree to which I am, because it's like from my head, it's from my perspective and my imagination. But I don't like it to be like this whole, I like, there's like, how come we don't think of songwriters as novelists more, or like whatever, like why do we why do we say like a novelist? Like, we know they're not, it's fiction, they're writing something else. But when a songwriter, there's this sense of like, there's this illusion of authenticity, or this illusion of like of reality, of like it's confessional. And I've never been like that. I've always been like, I like fantasy and comic books and stuff like that. So like I've always, you know, I liked that point of inspiration happened to me. I fucking almost kill myself on some ice. But then like I took it to this different place because I wanted to tell that story. And it's a much more dramatic story if you just, you know, you have this moment and then you're not committed to good. You're like, oh, like I'm gonna be an asshole. I'm gonna be, you know, selfish and
interesting
and shitty.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way. I mean, all of my lyrics, all of the songs I write are always from a darker place.
Yeah.
I have a hard time writing about happy things, and I've been called out on it quite a few times. Like, I can't do anything happy, and I'm like, it's boring.
That's a classic problem. Happiness, what's it called? Happiness writes white. That's like, you know, it doesn't appear on the page.
Right. So I mean, I totally get that completely.
But to kind of to contrast a little bit here, if you don't mind, Derek, I wanted to kind of shift from.
Let's contrast.
From hell. I wanted to kind of switch gears to your single, All That I Want.
Oh yeah.
That song of, because Derek kind of listened to the albums he mentioned over, but I kind of focused on, I think it's your solo stuff, because you just had your name on the album.
Yeah. So you know, Salem Wolves was the band from, you know, and it still is active as really anyone is these days. Right. You know, it still is active, but we started that in like 2014, 2015, really. And then basically in 2018, I had these sort of a producing team, sort of, mix of engineer and multi-instrumentalist who I've been working with for a while to sort of, just as auxiliary stuff, because I write so many fucking songs. I can't stop. And I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying that they just, there's many of them.
Right.
So, and I know when a song is not going to be for sale. So sale has a specific vibe. It's also, we write things in sort of a collaborative way that is different than how I do stuff over here. So I just, I was working with them and we had this collection of different sounding stuff. And we were like, why don't we just put this out as like a solo thing? So now that's my solo project, which has a bunch of awesome, engineers and musicians behind it too. So they're
right.
It's like, it is a band, but yeah, that's sort of what I do under Great Bouchard.
All that I want, it's obviously different from the most of the stuff you write because it's a Christmas song, right?
It is a Christmas song.
It's gotta be a Christmas song. It's had such a cool flow to it. I love the tremolo on the guitar. It's like almost like an anthem, a Christmas anthem in a way. It's just the vocals. It makes you want to rock. And I forgot that it was a Christmas song because but it's to me it's such a good song. And it's too bad that you didn't write a Christmas album.
We actually we keep talking about it because there's and just for full transparency, that's actually a cover. That's a cover, I think, of the Weepies. And they do, and it's very their version of it is like super, super acoustic. It's very
way different than the original, I'm guessing.
Oh man, it's so we kind of did like a Fleetwood Mac kind of like, how would just like coked out Fleetwood Mac approach this song, and that was a fun sort of paradigm. And that's because that band, it's funny because nothing, I'll do some more kind of introspective, more sort of soft and sort of classic singer songwriter stuff here and there, but I really do just like to get loud and rock and roll and there's kind of to go back to your question, we really want to do a Christmas album. There's a bunch of good rock and roll Christmas songs that live out there. I actually years ago did write a Christmas song, which is funny because I'm actually Jewish, but I kind of like Christmas music, not classic, those hear those sleigh bells.
Some Christmas music makes me rip my eyes out. But when you get that made for mall Christmas music,
Oh God. But I'm what it is for me is that I'm as a person pretty it's not sentimental. It is I'm a little nostalgic. I'm kind of sentimental. I like things that are sort of sentimental, not syrupy, not too bad, but that's Christmas, because it's so tied into family and joy and childhood and stuff like that. I don't know if everyone's Christmas was really joyful or whatever, but most people have a Christmas feeling. Most people have a Christmas vibe. So I love the idea that one day I might revisit the Christmas song that I wrote. I wrote this years ago, and it's a kind of it's weird. I got some work I got to do on it, but I like it. Yeah. And so thank you. That's that song rules. I'm very happy with it.
Solid song. If you do make a Christmas album, just make it like that, but times 10.
Absolutely.
But I also listened to your solo album. I just want to pull it up here because I got it on Spotify. Love in the New World.
Yes.
This is way different than your other stuff, and this is the newest stuff you wrote, right? When this album.
Yeah.
Way different. It's you go from rocking, I'm getting pumped up to do whatever music, and this is way more mellow, chill. I even got some it's not a very small amount of vaporwave kind of feel. Maybe
totally.
Maybe that's and especially on there's a cover that is so vaporwave. It's like a picture of a Lamborghini.
Yeah. That's
Lamborghini, and that was okay. I know this kid likes vaporwave. But this album, Love in the New World, it's a little more of an 80s feel. I liked it. I thought it was really cool. A couple songs of note here. Seven Birds, really cool. That's when I talk about flow in the song All That I Want. Another good song that just flows, and I noticed that with this song, Seven Birds too. Really cool stuff. Another one of my favorites on this album, Shaking the Tree. Shaking the Tree was really cool simply because of the freaking chord changes. It starts off with like it's I think you're just rocking on a G or whatever, and then it goes to like a pre-chorus thing, and then it goes into the actual chorus in my head.
Yep.
And I'm not saying this sounds like a Coldplay song at all, but for some reason I don't know if do you like Coldplay or not? Maybe a tiny
sort
bit.
of like I have a weird like I actually like some of their later era production, which is the weirdest thing to say about anything.
Well, this comparison, I'm making it to a newer Coldplay song. It's off there. I think it's like it's a bluish cover. The song's called Magic, and it has a cool bass line. I like it. But the chorus in that, it's really mellow. The chorus in this song reminded me of that. It's just really cool. The chord progression. And I was actually trying to figure out, I don't know if do you know your modes on guitar?
I barely know what chord I'm playing most of the time. I am as unsophisticated a guitar player. I am real meat and potatoes. That is all like the guys I like work with my production needs. They're jazz guys, and I love that because like I can be, and that's sort of like what you're talking about is really the key distinction in a lot of ways, and not a lot of people I think pick it. Like people hear it, but they don't quite know how to put it into words. That's really the distinction between like Salem Wolves and my solo stuff. Is that like Salem Wolves is joyfully limited by my actual abilities. Like I am very like I'm playing power chords most of the time. You know, if I have like a lead, that's like pretty rare, but I'll and half the time I'm holding on for dear life to get it. And like and I love that. You know, it's
nothing wrong with that. Sometimes simplicity is all you need, and you guys captured that effect really well.
And with my solo stuff, it is very much like I love what I love to do, and this is kind of how most of those songs come about, is like I write them kind of front to back, basically me in an acoustic. You know, sometimes I'll write a little on piano to like challenge myself and kind of still like take myself out of the mode I've been in for a while. And I'll send them over to the guys I work with, and I'll be like, hack it away, have at it. And they will introduce so much cool complexity, and it creates, like, I've never been like a fan of complexity for complexity's sake. Like I'm not prog guy really, like but I love being able to access different modes that are like out of my comfort zone, and it brings different things out of my voice. That like Shaking the Tree in particular, I wrote that song, I wrote the chords, and I sent it to them, and they did so much to it that I was like, oh man, like the lyrics I had for this are not going to work. I love I loved the foundation that they came. So I rewrote the entire lyrics, and like, and in the choruses in particular, like I was like, oh, I never, like usually in Salem Wolves and in other stuff, like I'm kind of like, in the chorus I get super loud and high. And I'm like, what if I did like what if I did a low thing? Like what if I sang lower?
And this is the comparison to that Coldplay record, the song Magic. It's a much more relaxed chorus.
Yeah.
And that's why it reminded me of that, kind of like structurally. But yeah, going back to what you're saying with the new way of writing here with these other guys, it's just like if I could recommend learning any theory, it would be to learn the mode, because recently I've been really getting my modes down, and that's like if you're into soloing or even just chord structure, just learn the modes and you'll be freaking like so good.
The only mode that I want to learn is an a la mode with
we gotta go. We're gonna end the show now.
Yes. Anyway, sorry.
Fantastic.
Continue.
What you guys say, Derek?
No, I was gonna say. Actually, I wasn't. I was just.
Oh, so you just interrupting our flow here. We're flowing.
No. Well, you know what? I'm gonna bring the flow to another level.
All right, bring it to a halt.
Yeah. So
bring it to another level.
Bring it to everybody who's on here, and I'm just really interested to find out the answers to these. So this one's kind of, I mean, both questions I'm going to ask are like, you're going to change your mind tomorrow, but I just figure like spur of the moment, what you think. If you could open for any band in the history of music, it could either be your solo work or with
Salem Wolves.
Or with Salem Wolves. It just depends like what you feel at the moment, but it would be you opening and then the other band or artist after you, and that would be the show. Perfect show for you.
So with my solo, well, let's start with my solo thing. So, and we're talking just like the one artist, like the one headliner, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly. An opener and a headliner. You guys would open, or you,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you.
Oh, this is I would do Peter Gabriel coming off of so basically what's that, like 80 something, like, so like because that album, you want to talk about like, the 80s feel on the new album, like that's like, first off, I love Peter Gabriel. I'm just like, I'm a huge, I love the way he writes songs. I love the fact that he brings in like multi cultural sort of influences into things in ways that, like, sometimes it kind of veers towards like, feeling like something like, a little bit more world music-y, but then a lot of times you're like, oh man, like I didn't even realize that that's like an African instrument that he's using. And so that like a lot of the songs around that era and the show he was doing around the era was really cool. And like, he's like a very visual performer, sort of like I am. So I think that it would be Peter Gabriel. I think that's whatever 80 something, like that era specifically of him.
That's cool that you picked the era too. No one's done that
the
yet.
best part of the 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. What do you think about Salem Wolves? What do you think who do you think of like the?
That's a great question. So this is the fantasy. Okay. Well, the reason I say that is because like for some reason, like I'm getting like, so we played a couple shows at the Sinclair, which is still like the high point of my life. Like that place fucking rules. That place, it like sounds so good. Like if you got a good crowd, it's amazing. It's like, it's huge. I love it. So like we did a show with Diarrhea Planet, which was sold out, and it was one of the most crazy shows I've ever been to. My friend actually broke his foot moshing so hard. It was the wild. It was like the most memorable show I think I will ever play. So that's already like, oh, like the fantasy is that show. I would just play that show again. I did,
Nice.
and relive that feeling of just like the place was so hot. People, there were bodies everywhere. It was sold out, packed to the brim. Amazing. If I were to take Salem Wolves and like do it with like any artist, like from any era, I would probably have us open for the Cramps around the early 80s too, like not in like seven, like I liked when they kind of like, I'm trying to remember who their guitar player was in that era. We had like the shock of white hair, but the Cramps are like were a big influence on Salem Wolves.
Oh, the Cramps. Okay, I think you said the Tramps, and
no,
I'm like maybe that would be for us, but
oh yeah,
I don't know if your music would mesh with that.
No. I like them, but I wouldn't. No, that would be for us. But yeah, no, it would be the Cramps, and like definitely like, because that's where we drew a lot of our kind of influence and style from, and like I like that kind of vibe, like, because a lot of the bands that kind of were inspired by the Cramps start to tip into like sort of like rockabilly, and that's where you start to lose me. Like I'm not like, I like a rockabilly thing, but it's like it's shticky, it's a little cheesy sometimes for me. So like what I liked about them is they were always pretty punk, and like I would really, but also not like punk. No, they're not the Ramones, so right. Or like I don't know, like the Dead Boys, so I would do like the Cramps, let's say CBGBs, just to really sweat it out.
Yeah. I got a lot of, when I was listening to the Salem Wolves, I got a lot of punk vibes, but I got like, because I've never really been a big punk fan, just because I grew up listening to like the Beatles and Zeppelin. I was just always kind of that guy, but I can appreciate any genre, but I got like a theatrical punk from you guys.
I like that.
Something that I'm really into, because I've did theater for years, and I always wanted to incorporate a little bit of Broadway into our shows. So I do my best to do things like that. But on the album Shake specifically, the song Moonlight, like that one there, like the lyrics were just like, I don't know, they were just so cool. And I could just like familiarize myself with that, because I was just like, oh, this is the type of thing that I would do. you know, it's like you said, you're entertaining when you guys are playing live. I can't wait to see you guys because I feel like we've crossed paths a couple times almost.
Yeah,
But it never quite happened, and I
we've been orbiting.
I can't wait for this to come back so I can see you guys.
We've been totally circling like each other all the time. I definitely have like kind of had that, like, you know, we've just like narrowly missed each other, and you're definitely picking up on something, which is for me, like, you know, like I came from theater, like, you know, when I was a kid, you know, that's actually kind of how I started with music. Really, I was in musicals. You know, I in like my whole family is musicians, but like you know, because I had to rebel against my father, who was like a local singer-songwriter, you know, I was like, well, I love music, but I'll do musicals. So that's kind of where I started. And like, I learned how to sing, and it kind of gave me this theatrical vibe, and I love that. But, you know, I started to get over it because I felt like, oh, like it's like the musical theater format is not how I express myself. But at the same time, you know, and kind of going back a little bit to what you said about punk, like punk is something I've had a very a sort of weird kind of push and pull relationship with. You know, I love aspects of it. I love a lot of punk bands. You know, I do like the Ramones are huge to me. You know, like the Cramps, who have their moments and were big in the punk scene, but like at the same time, I've always sort of struggled with frankly, the uniformity of it all. Like, I do think that like you start to get into, I love the democratization of it, that like it teaches you, and it taught me that like I didn't need to be a good guitar player to play guitar in front of people. Like for a long time, I had a real hang up about it. That like, and I you know, I was playing in this band like right out of college and in New York, and like I was a guitar player and I was a singer, and I always hated it. I always felt like, oh, I suck on guitar. Like, you know, I don't like this. I just want to be the singer. I just want to be the guy with the microphone. And the bass player in the band like took me aside and gave me like a brutal thing. We'd be like, honestly, man, you're playing guitar. That makes you a guitar player. That's it. That's like, just be punk rock about it. Who cares? If you play the wrong note, fuck it. Play the next note and try and play that one right. And I was like, okay, yeah, like that's good advice. Oh shit. Like, advice. Yeah. And that's kind of, and you know, you can, that's the platonic ideal of punk, which is that there's not like a gatekeeper. You don't have to be good. You can just have energy. I love that idea conceptually, and it's really been a value to my life. At the same time, I've really, like, with Salem Wolves especially, I never wanted people to think we were a punk band, because I just pictured mohawks. I pictured like mohawks and
I never thought of that. I just thought of an
element,
like an influence of it. That's
well, and that's kind of what you're hearing is really my kind of struggle there, which is this idea that and that's why we always call ourselves garage rock, which like what I really was inspired by, like the bands of, so what I love is like bands like the Sonics, where like these bands from the 60s who heard the Beatles and they were like, oh my God, they're blowing my mind. Like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. Rock and roll is the best. Rock and roll is going to save my life. But also they're from Iowa and they suck at instruments, and they're just like, and so they try and do Beatles songs, but they do bad versions of it. That becomes the genre. And like the garage rock of the 60s, like, was kind of the main thing for Salem Wolves. That's what I really wanted to get to, which is like this like power pop music, or like the rock and roll of the Beatles, but like filtered through, you know, being kind of shitty at your instruments. Which,
well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. The band that I think of right away when you mention that, like 60s sort of like not the greatest sound, is the Velvet Underground.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife for years just tried to get me on board with them, and it took me the longest time to sit down and listen to their first album and then appreciate it, because I've always been, you know, used to that, like the sweet melodic crisp sound of a studio, and they just sound like they suck in a garage, but there's something special about it. It was something like you said, like, you know, being energetic on a stage goes far.
Well, I think
and it's funny you say you put yourself down as a guitar player. I thought you guys sound great.
Well, thanks, man. I think a lot of it too is like a lot of what I love in music, and I think that most people like it too. They don't know that necessarily they're hearing it all the time. Is like, I love the sound of the struggle. I love the sound of the struggle. Like when you are playing at the top of your ability, like you're hitting the peak and you're like a little, and the kind of, I sort of call it like, like your hands are on the steering wheel and the steering wheel shaking. Like that's the way I love to play. And because I think that's the zone in which like there's the most energy and authenticity and feeling, and that's like, and so for me it was like Salem Wolves especially was kind of like my, and I was like, when I started that band, I was in the worst place in my life. I had a major relationship that had gone terribly south. I was moving back home, literally into my parents' house from living in Michigan, which I hated too. So it was like, it was like I was so goddamn depressed and just unhappy and like just kind of coming off this whole thing. So I was just like, I had this like anger and depression and sadness and yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I feel like I was gonna say like that. That's where it all happens. I feel the same way. Like when I'm at my low point, is where like all the frustration comes out in music. But it sounds like you said, you had a chip in your shoulder type thing, and you.
Oh yeah.
And that's the cool thing that they came out. The Salem Wolves came from a dark place, and now spiraled into a really positive thing in your life.
That's yeah, it totally saved I mean, this is a cliche, but it totally saved my life. It really did. I was like, I think that that's part of what made us, and like I sometimes I look back and think like, why, like we were given so many opportunities. We were just another local band. We were just, and I'm me, and all the guys in the band were themselves. So like you bring a little bit of uniqueness there, but like we're a bunch of like white guys playing rock and roll. Like there's like, that's like let's be honest, there's a million of us out there. Like why did people, and it wasn't like we took the world by storm, but like why did people give us the opportunities? Why did people like us? That I think it's because they heard the joy kind of in the primal scream of it all. Like, I need this. I need this to save my life. I need this so badly. And
you guys have a realness about you, and I think people, see that too. They see how real you are. I think in the last couple of episodes we've talked, we keep coming across the same thing of how sometimes when you hear somebody breathe in a record or talk in a record or kind of fuck up, it's actually like a really cool thing.
Totally.
It's amazing. It just brings these like vital things out. Like he's a regular guy. Like I listen to Bob Dylan and he laughs or fucks up in the middle of a line, and he just keeps going. And I'm like, the balls in this guy. He makes me feel like he's so up high. He's Dylan, but yet he's just a guy and he screwed up and he was whatever. Who cares? You
have stumbled across the ultimate, like the revelation as a musician, and especially like this took me so long because I'm a little bit of a closet perfectionist. Like like live is a different animal. Live, I am like what's happening is happening in real time, and I don't have any control over it. I love the freedom of that. It's scary, but I love it. On the record, I get in my head about it, and I'm sure that you're the same way. Yeah. And like part of the revelation to me was realizing that like, oh, the guys I look up to, the albums I love, they're full of quote unquote mistakes. They're full of like human moments, like a person laughing, like someone, like a snare falls over or something like that. Like, and I, as the artist, as a person recording my own album, like, well, that has to go. That sounds like shit, versus like, well, my favorite album has like someone, like a weird thing in the background that they're like, oh, like it sounds like some static that happened there. Like, how come that's not a deal breaker? Because they committed to it. And that's kind of like what we were saying before about like just committing to what you're doing. And if you like look someone in the eye and be like, this is what it is, you like it, they're like, you know what? I do like it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's so cool. This last question, you're going to get annoyed at probably because everyone does. Even actually, if anyone asked me this question, I'd probably get upset because I still don't have an answer for it. But if you could have dinner with any three people in history, living or dead, spur of the moment, who would it be?
So the first one would be John Darnielle from the Mountain Goats. So the Mountain Goats.
You said the Mountain Goats?
Yeah, Mountain Goats. John Darnielle. Yeah, he's the lead singer songwriter guy. I think the Mountain Goats is like the number one band for me of all time. And they really like that in like kind of on the other side of the punk thing. Like they're a different version of punk. They're like, just a guy slamming on an acoustic guitar, but also very like, yeah. Anyway, I think he's such an interesting thinker, and I would love, and he's like still alive. He's still touring, and like I love every interview he does. He's so thoughtful, and I love the place he's coming from. So I would start with him. All right, two more. I won't do all musicians because it doesn't have to be music all the time. I'll do Stephen King. Actually, I really like Stephen King. I think he's very. I like him for the fact that he mixes sort of the intellectual and philosophical and sort of the I would say pedestrian and commercial. Like he wants to write something that is that's interesting, that's hooky, and like kind of. So I really appreciate that, and I really liked his. I as much as I like his fiction, I also like his nonfiction too, where I think he wrote a thing of like how to be a novelist or something like that. I don't remember what it's called. And then finally, let's not do a white guy. Let's do Wendy Williams from the Plasmatics. That's a funny one. Because I remember when I was in high school, I had this crazy history teacher who for some reason decided he wanted to show us Reform School Girls, the remake, the 80s remake with featuring Wendy O. Williams of the Plasmatics in it. And I just thought she's such an interesting, like, I thought she just had such an interesting charisma and energy. So like, I really, I don't know. And she passed away a few years ago, and she I guess she spent like the last few years of her life as like a carpenter or like a she would chop wood or something like that. Yeah, I only know that vaguely, so it was very odd. But I always thought that like I loved how theatrical the Plasmatics were, like smashing stuff up, using chainsaws during their acts. So I would just love to be like, who's behind that? Who's the lady who's like literally like topless in a bikini, like sawing a car in half in the middle of a song, like what's she like over like polite conversation. So that's right. I think
that's cool.
That's awesome, man. Dude, you have to come back on here.
Love to. This was fun.
We
love
chatting, and like I feel like with you specifically, I feel like we could probably do like a 4-hour podcast about every aspect of everything in life.
Is it obvious I'm starved for like social like interaction?
Like I had this because we're like we number one, I wanted to meet other musicians who are local because, like I said, we always seem to miss you guys at shows. I always hear your name. You guys play, and then we play at Opus or whatever. It's just like
totally.
You. But that's why we did this, because I wanted to meet local musicians and talk to them and get to know them, because I feel like we're a community of. The Boston scene's kind of dying in a way, and I kind of want to try to revamp it somehow, but at least getting to know people and who's doing what. But
and this was honestly a blast. Like, I had the same experience with you guys. Like, when you like shot me a message, I'm like, Cosmic Vultures, I've seen like every time we were playing at Opus, you guys are playing it like across the street, like the next day, or like vice versa, or like
just one day.
Yeah, and it's like it's so like we and obviously it's tough in isolation, and just we want to make sure that like we keep in touch. So yeah, I had an awesome time. I loved talking to you guys. As you can tell, I can talk anyone's ear off. So
yeah, man,
thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Like Derek was saying, this could be like a 4-hour episode, but let's break it up into 4 1-hour episodes. So
that works for me. A little bit more digestible.
Yeah, so
for sure.
People don't get too overwhelmed. But no, let's definitely do this again. If you're available, we'll do it again. And hopefully, if the the social distancing eases up and you guys play a show, or we can hook up. We'd love to come see you guys play a show for sure.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And if you guys ever want me on, you know where I'll be, which is right here in my house.
Absolutely, it was so nice like meeting you. So
it was awesome to meet you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll hit it up.
All right, man. Thanks again for coming on the show. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Peace. Thanks.
Peace, man.
Conspiracy, it's the only crutch that you have on me. The hog in the house with all his rats, we bite our thumbs and never tip our hats.